Today on Geek Devotions, we're talking about Batman and the two ways that your past can or cannot define you. Hello, devoted geeks, and welcome to Geek Devotions, the YouTube show from devoted geeks who are devoted to letting people know that they are loved. I'm Dallas, and I'm so glad you hit the play button. Do me a favor, if you like today's content, make sure you hit the like button. Also, consider subscribing and hitting the bell symbol so you're notified every time we make an update on this YouTube channel. If you've been part of our devoted geek community for a while, you may have noticed that our intro was a little bit different. Why is that? Because this week, guys, marks the start of our Gotham City Gospel series. This all-month-long Gotham City is going to be the core of what's happening here at Geek Devotions. And this week we're talking about something that this little gem talks about. This right here is issue 404 of Batman. And I treasure this little gem right here quite a bit. As you can see, it is sealed. It's a 9.0. And I treasure this for a couple of reasons. One, this is a great reminder of what we're going to talk about here in a minute. Two, this was actually a gift from one of my students. And so it's really special to me. Issue 404 of Batman is the start of Batman Year One. It is the backstory that Frank Miller crafted to tell us more about Batman and his starting days as the Caped Crusader. Obviously, this particular series does dwell into the very familiar story that we've seen over and over again in countless movies and cartoons and different tellings of the story of Batman, and that is his beginning. If for some reason you have no idea how this happened, let me give you a quick recap of what really happened to Bruce Wayne. The basic storyline is simply this. As a young boy, Bruce Wayne and his parents were walking through an alley after leaving a movie. They were robbed at gunpoint, and in the midst of the robbery, things went south, and he lost both his mother and his father. Now, what we see in Batman Year One is Batman struggling to figure out his identity. He made a promise that fateful night to fight the good fight, to fight for justice, to make criminals pay for what took place to him as a young child. And then we see the epic scene of a bat flying through and him going, "I will become a Batman." It's pretty cool. You really need to read it. It's on the DC Universe app, and you can find it just in a lot of places. So yeah, what's interesting about this is the decision that he had to make as a young man. And this is really what has really drawn me to Batman over the years. As a young man, Bruce suffered a horrific tragedy. Absolutely horrific and terrifying. And he had to make a decision. You see, our past, and while we've talked about many times about not allowing our past to define us, we do have an option about how that past operates in our life. Bruce decided this. I went through a tragedy. I am going to take what has happened to me and I'm going to use it to fuel my passion, to spur me forward to do something different so that nobody else has to suffer the way that I suffered as a young man. That mentality, I can't help but admire. That mentality is something I've strived for personally in my own life. I went through quite a bit of things as a young man. I went through bullying. I saw some things that I really wish I could unsee and I wish had never happened in my life. But I saw these things and I experienced these things. And as a young man, I myself had to make a decision. Do I allow these things to make me a victim? Which sadly a lot of people do. They allow the tragedies in their lives to make them a victim, and they carry that victim mentality for the rest of their life. Or do I use it to spur my passion? Do I use it to spur me to do something different, to do something great, to make a difference? That is the question that Bruce was faced as a young man. Do I become a victim? Or do I become a hero? Just for a moment, I would like to take you to the scriptures and tell you the story about two different individuals who were faced with tragedies and they had to make decisions. The first one is Joseph. We talked about him a lot on this channel over the years, and the story about Joseph is real simple. As a young man, he was really kind of an outcast in his family, a little bit on his own fight, but he suffered a tragedy in the fact that his family literally sold him to slavery. And he went to prison. He was for really, literally no good reason, but he was tossed around back and forth, and he was even forgotten about, abandoned in prison for years. And yet, at the end of the day, he remained faithful to the Lord, and through this, he grew compassion. He grew compassion for the people around him, and the Lord ended up using him to make a difference. And towards the end of his life, he was face to face with his family who had abandoned him, who had hurt him, who had technically made him a victim. And instead of showing them wrath, as honestly those who live in a victim mentality do, he showed them grace. He became a hero to them and to the nation. Now let's flip this on the other side. What about somebody that legitimately became a victim? I'd like to take you to the story of Hosea. Hosea was an interesting prophet in the fact that God told him to do something that a lot of us don't understand, and that was this. God told him to go marry a prostitute, to go marry a woman who literally sells her body for sex. That's what he was supposed to do. Now, we all understand you typically don't do this thing, right? You don't necessarily go out and go, I'm going to go marry a prostitute. That's not a thing people think about doing. Why? Because there's a baggage that comes with that. And in the story of Gomer, we see that something happen. Now, we can assume that Gomer was probably in a bad spot. A lot of people who end up in prostitution have sold themselves into slavery for one reason or another. Now, some people legitimately, they've been kidnapped and they've gone through all kinds of tragic things. They've been brainwashed and, horrific things. And if you want some information on how to combat some of that, there'll be links down below. Check it out. But that being said, Gomer, she was a victim. Now, she found new life, new passion, something new. There was a man who loved her, genuinely cared about her, wanted to raise a family with her, and married her, and he treated her well. But she, in the victim mentality, kept running back to her old life. And this is the sad thing. If we don't handle the hurt and the pain from when we were hurt, and we allow our victim mentality to mandate who we are, we will go back to being what we were before. We'll allow that victim mentality to take us to dark places every single time. And that's heartbreaking, and that's sad. Now, the reasoning for that story is not to look at... the reason why the scripture is in the scriptures is not necessarily for you to look at her, but to look at the grace of God. So that's what happens with us. God has shown us grace, He's shown us love, and yet even still, man seems to go back to his former ways. But that's the beautiful thing about God's grace. Through Hosea, God showed how he continually chases after us, how he's continually coming after us and saying, let me redeem you, let me restore you, you're my bride, you're the one I love. See, you may have gone through something tragic and you've been living in a victim mentality, and maybe you're in a dark place right now and you feel like it's too late. It's not. I want you to know that there's hope and there's grace for you in this moment right now. You have the option. You have the opportunity to take the tragedy that took place in your life and go from being a victim to being a hero, to allow what happened to you to spur you to do great things. I was talking with some people recently about how sometimes we look at people and we go, man, why do they do this? Why do they act this way? Why do they have this strange structure to their lives? And what we don't realize is that maybe, quite possibly beforehand, they went through a tragedy and they said, you know what? I'm going to take what happened to me. I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to set up standards and rules in my life so that A, I don't have to be victimized again, but B, so that my family can be healthy, so my family can be strong. See, being a victim, sometimes people put themselves down and they just repeat the habit like Gomer. But they don't have to. They can be like Joseph, who went through tragedy and learned from it, learned compassion, learned to change things, and became a hero for his family who hurt him originally and for the world. So what's going on in your life? Have you been through a tragedy? Have you been through something harsh maybe at one point in time, and maybe through this video you realize maybe you've been living in a victim mentality? I want you to know you don't have to anymore. I want you to know that there's hope and that there's a way out of that, and that is through Jesus Christ. If we surrender our lives and our wills to Him, He gives us grace and He gives us a way through the stuff so that we can go from victim to hero like that. Now, what you guys just heard right now is just one small lesson of what you're going to hear all month long through our Gotham City Gospel series. Celeste and I are actually bookending this month, and what you're going to have in between us is students from the Healing Place School of Ministry. Each week, they're going to present to you some truth, some gospel truth, something to give you hope and give you life. And it's all going to be coming from Batman stories. How cool is that mess? So I want to encourage you guys, please hang out with us, be part of what's happening. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and keep in touch with them. And hey, do me a favor. These guys are a little nervous. And I'm telling you, they've done a great job. They've put a lot of hard work into it. So do me a favor. Encourage them as they try to encourage you. But more importantly, I want to hear from you guys. What'd you think of this episode? What'd you think of this devotional? How were you encouraged by it? How were maybe you challenged by it? Let us know. Leave comments down below. Also, don't forget to check out all of our social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just look for Geek Devotions. And most importantly, check out our website, geekdevotions.com, where you find this content, you find our podcast, you find all kinds of stuff. And if you like, you can find a way to support this ministry of Geek Devotions. All right? So guys, until next week, remember, stay devoted. Peace and love.